and this is again Rise to the Challenge event. We decided to continue our series with an episode focused on augmented reality and mixed reality in healthcare. Why we do that? So first of all, because Novartis and EIT Health are looking for fresh ideas and pioneers to create new augmented slash mixed reality solutions. So it's important that we will talk about what is what. So you will have a full picture during our talk. What is actually augmented? What is mixed reality? And what we are planning with those two kind of technologies. And we are now organizing a new hackathon where we are looking for new pioneers, innovators who are taking care of these technologies and would like to make some new product solutions to the healthcare market. And the second reason why we're doing this event is because if participants of the hackathon demonstrate their team's idea in front of senior experts and the executive of Novartis and EIT Health, they get the chance to continue the cooperation with Novartis after the event. So that's important to know that besides that, it will be, let's say, a regular hackathon focused on these technologies and healthcare sector, all the teams would have the possibility to cooperate with Novartis further on. And for today's event, our guest is Leon Rizner, scientist pharmaceutical development at Novartis in Slovenia, who can tell you why it is worth aspiring to working with Novartis and why it is worth joining the hackathon. Hello, Leon. Thanks for joining me today.
Hi.
For the audience, where I welcome all of you, I would like to remind you that you can ask questions on Facebook, LinkedIn, in the comments section, and we will answer as many as them possible. You can also take a look our article about the hackathon with Novartis in Slovenia under eithealth.eu/event/augmented mixed reality in healthcare hackathon. But definitely, if you're going to our site, you can easily find other opportunities as well. But I would highly recommend you to check out this opportunity because, and this is what I would like to underline here, the application period will last till 30th of October. So actually you have 2.5 days to apply with your ideas, or if you, and we will talk about it, if you also just, want to take part in a new project, in a new solution, you don't have the idea, but you have the enthusiasm to join the team and help out on the healthcare or the business side. So let's cut in the middle. And my first question to Leon would be that the hackathon focuses on mixed and augmented reality. But speaking of them, we cannot omit the virtual reality itself. So could you please explain what is the difference between virtual, augmented, and mixed reality? Because of course there are so many overlapping fields of these technologies. So we need to a little bit clear on that, at what is what.
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you. It is hard to meet talking about virtual reality since it was the first reality besides, of course, our own real reality in a practical form, not just in a part of science fiction books. This is mostly due to the state of technological advancements in past years. However, before I go too much into details, let's start with everyone's favorite part of every such exciting idea, and that's a little bit of theory. As you mentioned, there are several different realities. We know augmented, virtual, our real reality, and mixed reality. So in the next few minutes, we'll put them on a spectrum of realities. And we will start with the one that everyone knows, and this is the real reality. And let's put it on the far left side of this spectrum. What do we know about this reality? Well, I assume that we know a lot since we live in it, right? So, we know how to describe it with some physical laws. And even if we don't have any clue about physics itself, we simply know that we cannot go through the wall, or we cannot go through or see through the wall, right? And we know how to interact with objects. We know how to hold them. What happens if we let them go? And we know this instinctively because we experience this reality with all our 5 senses. So this is the basics about our boring reality on the far left side of this spectrum. Now let's go to the other side, to the right side, and talk a bit about virtual reality. As the name itself can tell us, it's about completely virtual world. So our 2 main senses, sight and hearing, are now sensing computer-based reality, not our reality anymore. Of course, there is a hardware that can affect also the other senses, but this is really niche technology that is not widely available yet. So when we're talking about virtual reality, seeing and hearing a virtual world, this is what we're talking right now. And even though only 2 senses are moved from our reality to this virtual, you can quickly forget about everything around you and become completely immersed into the virtual world. I'm sure that all of us saw at some point some funny video on internet when people are scared to death when they're standing on a VR ledge at some height, or they even fall to the ground. These videos are funny, but are also just a testament on how immersive this technology is. Despite the fact that the enthusiast headsets came to the market only around 10 years ago. Of course, this doesn't mean the technology isn't older than that. NASA used to use it to train astronauts already in the 90s, and there are few ideas that was implemented even before that. However, the technology development, let's say for the processing power, for the batteries and the screens really skyrocketed in the last few years, and that really enabled VR as we know it. Just remember how our phones looked like 10 years ago, right? So VR simply was not commercially feasible before that. So VR itself has, I wouldn't say bad, but unfair reputation that is only used for the gaming. And if we check the sales of VR headset, this is mostly true, but we shouldn't forget about industrial use. So I will give a few examples just to have a better idea how VR is used in the industry. So the first example can be industrial design. Anyone who ever tried any sort of 3D modeling knows that it is really hard to draw a 3D object in a 2D screen of computer, right? And in today's world, everything is sooner or later digitally designed. Nothing gets designed by the hand anymore. So imagine designing a car based on some hand-drawn sketches on your computer, and maybe you're not sure if something looks good, right? And before that, it took you months to create models and everything. But right now, with the VR, you can just grab your headset, put it on, and be in that virtual world in a matter of minutes and see the car right in front of you. So this is just one example. The second example would be virtual trainings. This comes also more relevant for the healthcare, let's say. So with specialized tools and equipment in the industry and the healthcare is getting more and more advanced. And with that, also complexity comes. And of course, with complexity, there comes a price. In order to operate such tools, you of course need to train people. And in order for them to operate safely and efficiently with equipment. Now with VR, you can put the trainee in front of such equipment in completely virtual world and give them opportunity to get familiar with equipment. Where is what, you can press that, you cannot press that, right? And with this approach, training before you actually put a trainee in front of the real machine, the real training become a lot more efficient and leads to less errors and potential safety issues. However, such completely virtual trainings can be expensive, since you need to bring this whole device, whole machine that you want to train people on into 3D world and program certain things. So this is still a little bit unavailable. But we will talk more about trainings when we come to mixed reality. And just the last example of virtual reality is a real estate. Nowadays, you can check your, let's say, house or apartment you want to buy completely virtually. You can basically walk in it before even the first stone was ordered, let alone built. So yeah, so now we covered the real reality on our left, virtual reality on our right.
Poles, yeah.
Yeah, and somewhere in the middle, we can find augmented reality. So augmented reality can bring virtual elements to our reality. However, these elements do not interact or they don't understand our reality. So to give you examples in order to be easier understandable, Tomasz, do you use maybe a smartwatch?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, they become really popular in the recent years. Yeah, I also have one.
Absolutely. Yes.
I use it because I'm a bit of a data nerd, so I like to see my parameters such as heartbeat, sleeping cycles. Mine even tells me how tired I am, even though I don't need a smart gadget to tell me that. But yeah, back to the topic. So if you want to see this data that is gathered, now you have to either look at your watch or you have to take out your phone and synchronize it with watch and check that data on the phone. But let's imagine that we have this augmented possibility, And we have this data always available right in front of us. We always see it, like on the left corner of our side, there could be a heartbeat, and on the right corner, there could be how many steps did you take, information like that. So imagine that you are running and you realize that you need to run faster. This data can tell you that, right? But this technology does not know that you're about to step on the road, that this is dangerous. So this just augments or enriches our reality, but it does not understand the world around us. One of the use cases already in production is augmented windshield on the cars. So certain brands on certain models use this technology to project information onto windshield itself, so the driver doesn't need to move his eyes from the road. Information can be, let's say, such as speed or RPMs in case of standard car, or a battery percentage on more modern electric cars, and let's say GPS information. And according to some of the research, 1 in every 4 car accidents happens when driver is not looking on the road, when the sight is somewhere else. And so this technology can already make world safer, right? Because if you already have information right in front of you, you don't have to look away. So I'm really looking forward to, in the future, to see this more common and to make our roads even safer. So now we created this spectrum of realities with real reality left, virtual on the right side, and augmented in between. And now we come to this mixed reality. And now that we understand all of the others' reality, mixed reality is really easy to understand, because it basically just combines all of that into one approach. So we have our main senses grounded into real reality. So we see the world around us like it is, but we can bring virtual elements or objects or information, and it understands its surroundings. So it's more advanced than augmented reality, because it simply knows, okay, this is wall, this is table. So it is a little bit smarter, let's say, than that augmented reality itself.
Yes, thank you for that. That was really, really clear, and I believe that all the audience are really appreciating that. That actually you brought to the ground all these terms. And I would be curious, what do you think about the recent years statistics? Because whenever we are talking about VR and also AR, but mostly VR. So as you mentioned, approximately 10 years ago, it revealed on the market. It started with B2C products, like in the gaming industry. But there were years where actually the whole industry was afraid of the technology to become one of the similar things, like we had Blu-ray or HD DVD. So actually, after a few years of trying, they are just terminated from the market. And now it seems that industrial utilization of these technologies can save the technology itself. So what do you think about that?
Yeah, so it is the right. There's always a real big hype when something is announced, right? It gets really hyped that this will solve everything, and then the hype slows down, and we realize that maybe this cannot be used for everything. But it is similar, let's say, as the mobile phones, right? So 10 years ago, they had a camera that we would barely call a camera by today's standards, right? And with each generation, with each iteration, it becomes better. It also, industry becomes more aware of what users need. And I believe that it will be the same with these technologies. This goes for VR, AR, and mixed reality. So with each iteration, it will be better, it will be easier to use, and it will be easier to program for.
Yes,
so
definitely.
There's, of course, bright future for this. And with using it in industry, in enterprise, sooner or later leaks back to the consumer hardware, right?
Yes, and it's important also connected to our hot topic. So actually, the hackathon itself. That whenever we are talking about utilization of these technologies in healthcare, it does not mean that just only for drug discovery or any type of really healthcare, so deep healthcare topics we are talking about, but also everyday process-related improvements. It's like how, for instance, a research lab is working, how the processes could be aligned or just integrated on a VR, AR mixed reality the surroundings. So that's also really important to highlight here that, of course, professional utilization sometimes comes with the everyday life examples. But getting back to you, Leon, so you have a pharmaceutical background, and of how I mentioned at the beginning in the introduction, you're a scientist. What was your first connection with these technologies? What was your motivation to start to work with digital technologies?
Yeah, as you mentioned, I am a pharmacist by profession, but ever since I remember, I was really curious and drawn to the technology. Ever since I remember, even in primary school, this might make me sound old, but I still remember launching video games in DOS, right? And this love also for video games stayed with me until now, and it moved into virtual reality. So I'm quite enthusiastic about that as well. But yeah, I can say that I'm really familiar with computers. I don't need much to get to use something and to experiment with it. So me being a geek is one part of the story. The second one, that I have tendency to be bothered with bad user experience and not optimized workflows, let's say in day-to-day work activities. So I'm very driven to make things better and to optimize them. And I am very grateful to be in the company where such ideas are heard. I tried my best before to describe all this reality, but I'm sure that someone couldn't follow and they were still confused about it. And it was because I could talk about this for hours, right? We have limited time. And it was the similar also with my coworkers. They look at me when I talked about that we need mixed reality in pharmaceutical development or in our industry. And it was similar with management, right? They were not that convinced, but nevertheless, they trusted our ideas and gave us the green light to go forward with this technology. And of course, this was not only my idea. It's actually a funny story that the idea of using mixed reality came from two different sites in Novartis in Slovenia, roughly at the same time. So we combined our efforts and formed a team, and just in 2 years, we managed to bring this technology actually from not having it at all in Novartis to being able to order it as simple as order a laptop on every location in Novartis.
That's really cool. That sounds really, really cool. Yeah, my next question would be highly connected to this because, of course, Novartis and DIT Health are both really active in healthcare field. And I mentioned some really, everyday examples. Also, you mentioned that it's getting organic part of your everyday work in every field of Novartis. But can you give some further examples that how these technologies can be implemented and make some changes in the healthcare we know today?
Yeah, of course. We need to be aware that healthcare is a really wide sector covering everything from the industry where I'm coming from to hospitals, pharmacies itself, and much more. And one thing that all of those fields have in common is strong regulation, right? So if we imagine some startup company as a jet ski, driving at the high speeds, taking high turns, doing flips and whatnot, a healthcare would be like a big tanker, right? It takes kilometers just to efficiently stop and move into the other direction. And since the true development of this technology started a few years ago, there's still a long way in front of us to really for this to become everyday technology, right? I briefly mentioned before cell phones, right? So with each iteration, it will become more and more better and better. It will be easier to program and be easier to implement certain ideas. So this will become more and more advanced. Don't get me wrong, the technology is already really advanced and it enables already a lot. Certain things are already reality, but for certain ideas, we'll still have to wait for a few generations, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Nevertheless, there are numerous multi-million-dollar startups using these technologies. If I give just one example, it's called a company called Augmedics, which developed a guided system for surgery. So they develop headset that enables surgeon a 3D representation so they can see through the patient's skin and tissue like they had an X-ray. This sounds like straight from the sci-fi book.
Absolutely.
For me. Yeah. And this is not just a demo or idea, it's actually FDA approved. So this is some really important big things. But maybe if we touch a little bit what can be achieved maybe with off-the-shelf hardware. So we already talked about a little bit about trainings. And I mentioned that it could be expensive in VR because you need this completely virtual world. With, for example, mixed reality, you don't need that. You can put a trainee in front of a real machine and give them instructions right in front of them, right step by step. So you can really monitor step-by-step instructions, and even you can call the expert that is working from home or working from the other side of the world, and they can help them, guide them, trainee or someone who's executing the action step by step, right, to really to help them and to improve or to be faster.
Yes.
So this is just one example, for example, trainings or remote assistance. The other, maybe worth of mentioning, example in the healthcare will also be visualizations. So explaining, imagine that we are in the hospital situation and doctor needs to explain something to the patient. Let's say that I broken my arm. It is really hard to explain what is going to be done just into these scans. But right now we could use this technology to really bring 3D models, like real things, and it'd be a lot easier to explain to the patients how some, let's say, surgery can be done, and it can really be easier to communicate. Because the experts sometimes forget that not everyone is versed in the knowledge as they have, and we sometimes forget that we need to simple it down, and with such a 3D models, this can be a lot easier. But why stop there? Let's talk about medicine students, for example. Why would they need to learn anatomy from 2D drawings? Now we can literally step into the 3D body, put it in front of us, zoom it, step into it. So yeah, there's a lot to discover. And I could go on and on with examples, but I think it is the best to stop here. You could also notice that I, before when I was explaining the realities, I gave examples not from the healthcare, and that was on purpose, because I want to give these opportunities to talk about such ideas on the hackathon.
Absolutely, yes, and of course we should never ever forget that, of course, technologies are not islands in the world, so they are highly connected to other trending technologies. Just if you just mentioned the education, so if we are combining mixed reality, augmented reality, or virtuality with big data or AI, machine learning technologies or algorithms, then it can make a bigger boom. Like just the technology itself can bring us. So if you just mentioned the hackathon, so let's talk about it a little bit. I mentioned at the beginning that we have still 2.5 days from the application phase. The event will be held between 12th and 14th of November. So that will be a weekend session starting at the afternoon hours of Friday, and we will end at Sunday evening. Can you a little bit talk about that? What would the hackathon bring to the participants? What they can learn? Why it is worth joining?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this hackathon, and because of the pure scale of it and what it can bring to Novartis. So we already use mixed reality glasses in Novartis in our work, but we are, as typical eager scientists, we are always looking for exciting new ideas, right? So this is what we think you can bring to us. So exciting new ideas. We will not limit ourselves of what is possible with technology right now or whatnot. So the only sky is the limit, right? And we are excited to get these ideas, to develop these ideas, and let them mature. So one of the main reasons why I think is exciting to join this hackathon is that you will be mentored by really early adopters of this technology in Novartis, who have already tons of experience, knows what works, what can be done. So we can really guide these ideas into the right directions. And despite working with experts, participants will also get familiar with idea incubation or design thinking approaches, so that they can really shape those ideas to impress the jury, because after all, hackathon is a form of a competition, right?
Yes.
And if this is not enough to convince our listeners to apply in next 2.5 days, I need to, and also need to mention that there's also a prize of 5,000 euros for the winning team.
Yes, definitely. And already we have a really solid lineup of mentors. So coming from both Novartis and the IT Health side, we will also have senior mixed reality developers on site. Of course, whenever we are talking about now, unfortunately, we are in a situation where on-site means online, but everybody will be eager to help the teams. So that's definitely worth to underline it here. So here, I would like to remind our audience that you can ask your questions through Facebook or LinkedIn comments. And also you will have the opportunity to later on rewatch the videos, because in all the platforms we will publish the videos. And of course, you can find the further details of the hackathon in our education catalog, which can be found at eithealth.eu. So if you have any questions for now, please raise it. And before we are heading to the questions, Leon, do you have any final hint or advice for the teams or participants who would be interested in the event?
Yeah, I hope that our conversation really inspired some or sparked some ideas and to give some background on these different realities. So I'm really looking forward to your ideas, how to make our life better. And yeah, I'm really excited about it.
That's cool. Okay, and now let's turn to the questions. So first, I really hope that I'm pronouncing the name well. Please forgive me if I'm not. So our first question coming from Uresh Buzetti. So can motion sickness be a problem when using these technologies?
Yeah, this is a known, let's say, potential problem, especially for the VR, because you lose, like I mentioned, you lose the contact with your reality, right? But there are steps on how to omit that. So if anyone is used or easily gets motion sick, usual approach is to have, let's say, VR experience static. So you shouldn't move in the virtual world if you're not moving in the real world. This is the, let's say, the first step to lower potential of motion sickness, and the other is trying it in short periods. People a lot of time get excited. They see a VR and they see a roller coaster app, right, where you move a lot, but in the real world you cannot. Even I, who use virtual reality, let's say a lot, get sick with such experience. So it is important what kind of experience you're going into. But if we are more if we are talking about mixed reality or augmented reality, this is less of a problem because you are grounded. You still see the world around you, so your senses are still here. But it applies the same thing. If it affects you, slow doses, and usually gets better.
Okay. We hope that we answered for your question. Thank you, Leon. The next question is coming from Julia Miller. So how professional should I be to join the hackathon?
So you shouldn't think, I think this is the question you shouldn't be bothered with. So even if you're a student, if you have a good idea, everyone is welcome. Like I said, we're looking for ideas. Sky is the limit, and we're looking forward for everyone to apply who has a good ideas.
Yes, absolutely. And also, besides the idea owners, I would like to also highlight here that if you are enthusiastic towards these technologies, so you are interested in and you are learning or working on a business or a healthcare field, we are much more than welcoming you in the program. You need to know that we have limited number of seats, so we agreed on that we have 60 seats. Of course, whenever we have the final lineup of participants, we will also create a team formation session. So actually, we will split the 60 people to 15 teams, and then you will have the 2.5 days to work on the idea, what is called connected to the idea owner. Then the final question for today, because unfortunately we are running out of time. So I see that so many questions are coming. So actually, the last question we can reply to here, and of course, the further on will be replied on the Facebook and LinkedIn pages, is coming from Ines Mendes Matias. So besides mentoring, what type of opportunities will I get if I join the hackathon?
Yeah, I already mentioned a few of the benefits. You will get familiar with this technology, and because it is still in, let's say, in early years, you can really be a pioneer in this field. And the winning teams or good ideas will be taken into consideration to develop further for Novartis. So there's an opportunity reaching after the end of the hackathon itself.
Thank you very much. And thank you very much, Leon, for being with us. Thank you for the insights you shared with us. And by this, I also would like to thank you for our audience for joining us. And I would like to encourage you to stay tuned because we'll come back with more. Don't forget to check our website, which is eithouse.eu/event/augmented mixed reality in healthcare hackathon. But it's easier to remember the eithouse.eu, and then of course by the right navigation you will find this event as well. And in the meantime, if you need any advice, you can freely contact our team. Of course, we are always publishing new things about the hackathon and other programs. So check out our website, check out our Facebook and LinkedIn pages, and we are frequently sharing new information. So where's to check our sites, guys. I really thank you for coming today, being with us, and we will come back really soon with further interesting opportunities and further interesting programs. Thank you, and have a nice afternoon. Bye bye. Thanks, Leon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.